What's going on, guys? We're back doing another unboxing of the MTG Lord of the Rings Tales of Middle Earth Commander decks. So, last time we did the Forces of the West, now we're doing the Elven Council. Simic Elves, dude. You cannot get away from Simic and Elves, man. They go hand in hand. Or maybe it's green and Simic. I don't know. In some way, there's always elves involved in Simic. Mainly because, they're great. But I digress. Elven Council. I'm excited. Um, you know, in Lord of the Rings, elves were some of my favorite characters. I like their mythology that they had. The way that they fought. Using their bows. Legolas, of course, being the standout, freaking. Just MVP sniper chat in all the movies. But yeah, like I said before, guys, I have not allowed myself any spoilers or as few spoilers as possible. So I don't know anything about this deck, but with the deck box here, we do get a the big art of Galadriel, Elven Queen, a 4-cost elf noble. So before we get into the deck, we got to open the box. So like I said with the other video, guys, I do save these boxes because I do intend to put them up on the wall, kind of as like a mural or something. If anyone has any ideas on how to do that, let me know, because like I said, I have the 4 Lord of the Rings, and now I have the I have the 4 Warhammer 40k, and now I have these Lord of the Rings boxes. All right, put that over there. So once you unbox this thing, we get some counters here. All like I said before, we had the big Galadriel card. We have these little symbols. I'm not really sure what they're for. I'm sure we'll learn as we go into the deck. We have this Tales of Middle Earth token. And then if you fold out these 2 wings, we get +1/+1 counters, which is always nice. I mean, it's a good way to represent if you don't have dice. Oh, I didn't even realize if you fold out the top flap, you get more, and no, just the top. All right, so when you flip it over, like with the other box, you'll see we have 2 little compartments, each one having its own unique little token. Not really sure what those are for, but we'll find out. So first thing, we'll open this one on the left side of it. Looks like a flat piece of cardboard. However, if you fold it out, it pops into a deck box that you can use for the deck. Like I said in the previous video, pretty good because I actually don't have any more deck boxes on hand. I need to go buy some more, but I'm currently broke, so not gonna happen. But it is a nice enough deck box. Obviously, it's a little flimsy because it's just paper, but it does look nice. We get a nice full art portrait here of Gandelf and Galadriel on the box. And on top, it does say Lord of the Rings, Trials of Middle Earth. So, super cool. Now, if we pop out the stuff from the right-hand side, and it all comes out nicely, which it did, we get a couple things. We get our life counter tracker. We get our special pack of Lord of the Rings cards, which we will open at the end of the video to see if I do pull the 1 Ring of Power and am able to retire today. Before we get into this deck, though, I do want to open the pamphlet, because I think the pamphlets are really cool. We looked at the last one for the Men of the West, which was super cool. Let's see what this one says. So we get a nice, massive piece of art. We have Galadriel on the left-hand side, and then we do have Gandalf on the right-hand side. For Galadriel, Elven Queen, it says, Galadriel carries one of the 3 rings of the elves and is nearly as old as Middle Earth itself. She rules the forest of Lotharin with her husband Celebrimbor, and provided aid to the Fellowship of the Ring after their escape from Moria. Her many gifts and boundless wisdoms would steer the Fellowship towards victory over Sauron and ensure her legend as a light in the darkness. Very, very true. And then if we scroll down, like I said, scroll down. If we gaze down a little bit, we get a massive picture of Gandalf, and it says Gandalf Westward Voyager. Gandalf is an ancient wizard sent to Middle Earth in the time of the Third Age to prevent Sauron's return to power. Centuries of wandering endeared him to the many peoples of the land as a wise and trusted sage. As the leader of the Fellowship of the Ring, he set out to guide Frodo to destroy the One Ring. It was only after Sauron's defeat that Gandalf was able to sail west and return to the Blessed Realm across the sea. That is very true. And then at the bottom here, we have the magic colors that kind of break down how they work. So white, order, cooperation, protection. Blue, knowledge, control, perfection, black, power, death, ambition, red, emotion, chaos, rebellion, and green, nature, instinct, and community. Why are Galadriel and Gandelf green and blue aligned? Galadriel and Gandelf, as legendary magic uses and unrivaled fronts of wisdom, are strongly blue aligned. Their green alignment comes from a deep connection to the land, especially through Galadriel's stewardship of LOTR and Gandelf's friendship with the peoples of Middle Earth. I completely agree. That is a good reason to make them blue-green. Honestly, as much as I was making fun of Simic players, myself being the biggest, or not the biggest, but having let's see, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 7-ish decks that are blue-green involved. It is a little much. So we flip our little pamphlet over, and it says Galadriel, Elven Queen playing the deck. Assemble the White Council. Galadriel and the elves know that the various peoples of Middle Earth must come to an agreement to thwart Sauron's designs. Convince the other players in your commander game to vote as you do. Enlist the aids of wizards and their mighty spells, assembling an army of elven heroes to defeat the forces of Mordor. That's interesting. So potentially, from what this is saying, this might be a group hug deck. It might be more of a Planeswalker style deck, because it does talk about using other wizards to cast mighty spells. But I do imagine this could be a heavy spell slinger deck. But green blue can do it all. It can ramp, it can gain life, it can burn it somehow, and copy. And then here down below we get a nice picture of I guess LOTR. And honestly, it looks like the Rivendell, considering that we do see ships here on the water. But also it does list the commander rules. I'm not going to go through them, as I'm sure most people watching these videos are aware of what commander is. But if you're not, you could definitely go read them there or on the internet somewhere. So I'm going to put the pamphlet aside, put it over here with the rest of our stuff, and we get our deck. So with these pre-made decks, they do contain 100 cards. They do contain 2 commanders that we can use, and a myriad of tokens, which is always nice. So without further ado, let's get into it. Like I said, I have no idea what this deck is, and I'm pretty excited. So I'll put that over there. We have Galadriel, Elven Queen. She is a 4-cost 5/4 elf noble. Her ability says, Will of the Council. At the beginning of combat on your turn, if another elf entered the battlefield under your control this turn, starting with you, each player votes for domination or guidance. If domination gets more votes, the ring tempts you. Then you put a +1/+1 counter on your ring bearer. If guidance gets more votes or the votes are tied, draw a card. So interesting. So Galadriel is going to very much affect how the game was played, with the One Ring cards that were added into this set as an additional way to play the game rather than just your standard commander. So that's pretty cool. Outside of that, though, it is a little odd that this card, it doesn't really have any other massive commander sort of abilities, but it is cool. And I mean, I have briefly, no, I'm going to say this briefly, read through the ring card, which does have interesting things. Your ring bearer is legendary, can't be blocked by creatures with greater power. Your ring bearer attacks, draw a card, and then discard a card. Whenever your ring bearer becomes blocked by a creature, that creature's controller sacrifices at the end of combat. Whenever your ring bearer deals combat damage to a player, your opponent loses 3 life. Those are pretty cool things that happen in the game, but yeah, it's interesting to see how focused she is on that. In a group hug kind of style, it makes a lot of sense. It makes her actually pretty powerful. So, like I said, with all these decks, we do get another commander, and that comes in the form of Gandelf, Westward Voyager. So he is a 5-cost 5/5 avatar wizard. So Gandelf says, whenever you cast a spell with mana value 5 or greater, each opponent reveals the top card of their library. If any of those cards share a card type with that spell, copy that spell. You may choose new targets for the copy, and each opponent draws a card. Otherwise, you draw a card. So whenever you cast something big, you are going to force your opponent to reveal a card, and then if it shares the same type as the spell that you played, you get a copy of it. Potentially, you're stealing your opponent's, massive damage spells, or, any kind of spell like that. Worst case scenario, you get to draw a card. So that's pretty cool. So the first card that we have up that's not a commander is Lauren Revealed. So this is a 5-cost sorcery. Draw 3 cards. You can island cycle it for 1, so discard this card, search your library for an island card, reveal it, and put it into your hand. It does give you some versatility where if this card is in your hand late game, you get to draw 3 cards with it, which is really nice. And if not, and you have it in your opening hand, you can land cycle it to get an island that you'll need later on in the game. Next we have Celeborn the Wise. He is a 4-cost 3/3 elf noble. Whenever you tag with one or more elves, scry 1. Whenever you scry, Celebrimbor the Wise gets a +1/+1 until the end of turn for each card looked at while scrying this way. As you are scrying, so I'm assuming this deck is going to have quite a few scrying cards, this card is going to get bigger and bigger for a turn, allowing him to then swing over smaller things or put pressure on your opponents. Next we have Elven Farsight. It is a 1-cost sorcery, scry 3. Then you may reveal the top card of your library. If it's a creature card, draw a card. Next we have Woe Pathfinder. It is a 2-cost 1/1 human shaman. You can tap to add 1 mana of any color. You can pay 6 and a green, tap. Target creature gets +3/+3 and gains trample until the end of turn. So that's pretty fun. So as Celebrimbor starts to get bigger, or some of the other cards that we'll have in this deck, as they get bigger, you can pay a ton of mana if you don't have anything else to do with that mana. You're giving that card +3/+3 and trample, ensuring that probably some damage is going through. Next we have Learning from the Past. It is a 4-cost instant. Target player shuffles their graveyard into their library. Draw a card. I love this as a card. The 4 mana cost to put all your cards from your graveyard back into your library to draw a card is, I'm pretty sure that's the standard. It is pretty cool because if you're losing massive combo pieces, you get to put them back in your library before, you know, a Bajuka Bug or something hits the field. Good card. Allows you to scry the top card and draw for 1. Next, we have Preordain. It is a 1-cost sorcery, scry 2, then draw a card. That's pretty good for 1 cost. I will not complain. The scrying is really good, and then the drawing just makes this card awesome. Next, we have Arbor Elf. Everyone knows this card. It is a 1-cost 1/1 elf druid. Tap, untap target forest. So super good, super cheap. No reason to hate on that card. Next we have Beast Within. It is a 3-cost instant, destroy target permanent. Creature creates a 3/3 green beast creature token. Hey! Speaking of cards that you run in every green deck, we have Cultivate. It is a 3-cost sorcery. Search your library for up to 2 basic lane cards, reveal those cards, put 1 onto the battlefield, and put the other into your hand, then shuffle. This card is fun because it shows Farmer Maggot with his hounds, which is awesome. And the card text does read, "Suddenly, as they drew near, a terrific baying and barking broke out, and a loud voice was heard shouting, 'Grip, Fang, Wolf, come on, lads.'" So it does talk about when they did run into Farmer Maggot in the first. Next, we have Elvish Mystic. It is a 1-cost 1/1 elf druid. Tap, add green. Next, we have Elvish Visionary. It is a 2-cost 1/1 elf shaman. When Elvish Visionary enters the battlefield, draw a card. Next we have Fairhaven Elf. It is a 3-cost 1/1 elf druid. When this card enters the battlefield, you may search your library for a basic land card, put it onto the battlefield tapped, then shuffle. So, super nice card. It is kind of expensive, but it does go fetch lands, which is nice. So you have to take into account that this is an elf on top of a fetch. Next, we have Mirror of Galadriel. It is a 2-cost legendary artifact. You may pay 5, scry 1, then draw a card. This ability costs 1 less to activate for each legendary creature you control. This is cool. So the Mirror of Galadriel is the mirror that Frodo looked into and saw a vision of the future if basically he failed in his quest to destroy the One Ring. And this, the card actually does reference that moment. Your queen stands upon the edge of a knife. Stray but a little and it will fail. To the ruin of all, yet hope remains while the company is true. So it does talk about Galadriel, when she has that kind of come to heart moment when she has to decide if she wants to take the ring after it's offered by Frodo. So it's a really cool card to see. The effect is nice, you know, to scry and draw. The fact that you can make this card cheaper if you have legendary creatures on the field is super nice, because paying 5 mana to scry and draw is a lot, but it can be made cheaper, which is nice. Next we have Lignify. It is a 2-cost Tree Folk Aura. Enchanted creature is a Tree Folk with base and power and toughness of 4/0 and loses all abilities. So a great card to have in a group hug style kind of deck where you want to scry and really bide your time before you get to cast your really expensive creatures like Galadriel and Gandelf. This will do nicely. You know, it basically will completely remove a commander from a game where you make them become this 0/4 tree folk that can't do anything. They can't activate their abilities, and unless your opponent has a way to bounce it or sacrifice it, they have to get rid of this enchantment, which forces them to burn resources. Next, we have Paradise Druid. Paradise Druid is a 2-cost 2/1 elf druid. This card is hexproof for as long as it's untapped. You may tap to add 1 mana of any color. Paradise Druid has always been a fantastic elf to have, taps for any color, and has built-in protection, which is super nice for an elf deck. Next, we have Rampant Growth. It is a 2-cost sorcery. Search your library for a basic land card, put that card onto the battlefield tapped, and then shuffle. Next, we have Reclamation Sage. This is a 3-cost 2/1 elf shaman. When this card enters the battlefield, you may destroy target artifact or enchantment. So, super nice to have. You know, gets rid of problematic cards or mana dorks. Sorry, not mana dorks, mana rocks like Soul Ring, Arcane Signet, Command Sphere. Next, we have Wood Elves. It is a 2-cost 1/1 elf scout. When this card enters the battlefield, search your library for a forest card, put that card onto the battlefield, and then shuffle. So, like I said, it's super nice that this deck has given us a ton of cards to go fetch and get lands. The nice thing about Wood Elves is that when you get that land, it doesn't come onto the battle. It doesn't say that it comes onto the battlefield tap, so it does make up for this card being 3 mana. Next, we have Growth Spiral, everyone's favorite Simic card. You pay 2, draw a card. You may put a land card from your hand onto the battlefield. So, super nice if you can get this out on turn 2. It'll basically put you 1 land ahead of everyone and gives you a draw. I do like the picture in this card where it shows the trees of Lothlorien. Cool. Next, we get Arcane Signet. We again have this awesome art where it shows the stamping symbols that we have from the other deck that I covered. Arcane Signet is a 2-cost artifact. Tap, add 1 mana in any color of your commander's color identity. So, super nice to have. It helps us fix our mana base. Next, we have Command Sphere. Okay, so this explains why we had, with the other Command Sphere, we had the Planeteer, which I had originally said seemed kind of odd, but it makes sense now that these cards are all going to be the same art. So, makes a lot of sense. Command Sphere, of course, is a 3-cost artifact. You can tap to add 1 mana of any color that is your commander's color identity. You can also sacrifice this card to draw a card. So, super good mana rock. In the early games, helps you with your mana fixing, and in late games, you sacrifice it to draw a card. Here's a card I didn't think we'd see in this deck, Lightning Greaves. It is a 2-cost artifact equipment. Enchanted creature has haste and shroud. You can equip it for 0. I'm surprised that this isn't here, but it does make sense that you'd want to. It makes sense that you'd want to protect, you know, your really expensive, really cool commanders. So cool that this card is in this deck. Next, we have Soul Ring, everyone's favorite artifact, and possibly one of the most broken cards in Magic. For 1 mana, you get an artifact that you can tap to add 2 colorless mana. Super good card for this deck. Like I said, we've got a lot of expensive cards in this deck, so really glad they gave us Soul Ring. Here's another card I didn't think we'd get, a Whisper Silk Cloak. Whisper Silk Cloak is a 3-cost equipment. Equipped creature can't be blocked and has Shroud. You equip it for 2. So what's cool about this card, besides that we got a Whisper Silk Cloak in this deck, is if you look at the card art, you can see one of the halflings with the cloaks that Galadriel gave them. If you guys remember from the movies, those cloaks are magic. Frodo and Sam used them to hide from the Easterlings that were pouring into the Black Gate in the second movie. Next, we have Release the Parasades. It is a 5-cost sorcery. Choose a creature type. Return all creatures that aren't of that chosen type to their owner's hand. So, super good. It is like a River's Rebuke, except it only affects your opponents, because you're going to say elves. Your opponents don't have any elves, so all their stuff gets bounced to their hand. Next, we have Trap the Trespassers. It is a 3-cost instant. Secret Council. Each player secretly votes for a creature you don't control. Then those votes are revealed. For each creature with 1 or more votes, put that many stun counters on it and then tap them. So a stun counter functions as such. Whenever that creature would go to uncap, if it has a stun counter on it, remove the stun counter instead. So basically, this is a card that allows you to jail specific cards. What is cool about this card is that it works in this group hug deck where each player secretly gets to vote for a creature, so you could jail multiple cards, including your own, which might be scary. However, as none of your cards are obviously offensive and, you know, as aggressive as things like I imagine the Witch King will be, as Gimli was, your opponents are probably going to vote for those more than your stuff. So you're going to get stun counters on all of your opponent's stuff, well, then you have room to breathe and, you know, you get to set up your board more. So a fun card to have for this deck. Next we have Arwen, Weaver of Hope. She is a 3-cost to 1 Elven Noble. Each other creature you control enters the battlefield with a number of additional +1/+1 counters on it equal to this card's toughness. So I'd actually like to make her a commander of a deck, because I think this would be cool. Use cards that would make her tougher. She can come out pretty quick being a 3-cost commander, and then play a bunch of small creatures that will take advantage of her commander ability to make them bigger. And it doesn't even say on this card when she leaves they lose that. So if this card gets killed, you can then replay it and then continue to play these small cards that just come in much, much bigger than they should be. I think this is a really, really cool card that I'm going to keep my eye on and think of some ideas and ways to make her a commander. Next, we have Galadriel Ambush. It is a 4-cost instant. Create X/1/1 green elf warrior creature tokens, where X is the number of attacking creatures. Prevent all combat damage that would be dealt this turn by non-elf creatures. Next, we have Haldrar, Lauren's Lieutenant. He is a X green 0/0 elf soldier. This card enters the battlefield with X +1/+1 counters on it. Has vigilance. You may pay 6. Until the end of the turn, other elves you control gain vigilance and get +1/+1 for each +1/+1 counter on this card. So that's super cool. So you can pay a lot of mana into this card, so he comes down as a giant beat stick, and then because you paid a ton of mana into this card, you have enough mana the next turn to pay into his ability, to where he's buffing all of your other elves, making them giant beat sticks, and then allowing you to swing into your opponents for massive damage. So that's super cool. I think this card's actually really fun. Actually, I would probably put him in the same deck as my Arwen deck, thinking about building, because I think he'd go great. Allow Arwen to make all these small creatures, allow him to come down in the late game as this big beat stick, and then the following turn, boom, all those elves that were small are now giant. Next, we have Legolas, Greenleaf. He is a 3-cost 2/2 elf archer with reach. Legolas can't be blocked by creatures with power 2 or less. Whenever another legendary creature enters the battlefield under your control, put a +1/+1 counter on Legolas. Whenever Legolas deals combat damage to a player, draw a card. Elves have historically struggled with flying, so Legolas having reach is awesome. Legolas not being able to be blocked by chump blockers is also incredibly nice. And then the final kind of pièce de résistance being whenever he deals combat damage to a player, I get to draw a card. He is I think, a great utility card for elf decks if you want to take him out and put him into another deck. Next, we have the Mirkwood Elk. It is a 6-cost 6/6 elk with trample. Whenever this card enters the battlefield or attacks, return target elf card from your graveyard to your hand. You gain life equal to that card's power. Having a 6/6 elk with trample is really cool as well in this deck of relatively small creatures. Having something that, can block big stuff and is a threat to your opponents is always nice to have. Next, we have Travel Through Caladras. It is a 6-cost sorcery. Starting with you, each player votes for Red Horn Pass or the Mines of Moria. For each Red Horn Pass vote, search your library for a basic land card and put it onto the battlefield tapped. If you search your library this way, shuffle. For each Mines of Moria vote, return a card from your graveyard to your hand. Exile this card. This card is super cool. If you remember back to the movies, right after they leave on the quest, they make camp and Sauron's spies of ravens fly over, and Gandelf then presents a choice, of what paths they could take, right? They could make for the Gap of Rohan, they could try to go over the Red Horn Pass, or they could go through the Mines of Moria as Gimli really wanted them to. So that's really cool that when you play this, you get the group that you're playing with gets to make a decision of where you're gonna go. Do you go through the Red Horn Pass or do you go through the mines? So I love this, and I do like that the card does show both. It shows the Mines of Moria and the pass. So I think this card's fantastic lore-wise. Next, we have Windswift Slice. It is a 3-cost instant. Target creature you control deals damage equal to its power to target creature you don't control. Create a number of 1/1 green elf warrior creature tokens equal to the amount of excess damage dealt this way. Next, we have Caradrin, the Shipwright. This, I believe, is actually the elf that gave up his ring to Gandelf in the books. He is a 5-cost 3/4 elf noble with vigilance. When this card enters the battlefield or attacks, each player secretly votes for a player. Then those votes are revealed. Each player draws a card for each vote they receive. Each player who receives no votes may put a permanent card from their hand onto the battlefield. Oh my goodness. The politics that you could have with this card. That's amazing. Next, we have Elrond of the White Council. He is a 5-cost 3/3 elf noble. When this card enters the battlefield, each player secretly votes for the Fellowship or aid. When those votes are revealed, for each fellowship vote, the voter chooses a creature they control. You gain control of each creature chosen this way, and they gain this creature can attack its owner. Then for each aid vote, put a +1/+1 counter on each creature you control. So that is super cool. This card referencing, of course, the council that was held in Rivendell as to what to do with the ring and what to do with the elves. You know, do they send the fellowship off to try to destroy the ring, or do they just kind of hold it in Rivendell and send help wherever they can? Next we have Elrond of the council. He is a 3-cost 2/4 elf noble. Whenever players finish voting, each opponent who voted for a choice you voted for creates a treasure token. You scry X, where X is the number of opponents who voted for a choice you didn't vote for. Draw a card. Next we have Mirkwood Trapper. It is a 3-cost 1/4 elf scout. Whenever a player attacks you, target attacking creature gets -2/-2 until the end of the turn. Whenever a player attacks, if they aren't attacking you, that player chooses an attacking creature. It gets +2/+0 to the end of turn. Next we have Radagast, Wizard of the Wild, a 4-cost 3/5 avatar wizard with Ward 1. Beasts and birds you control have Ward 1. Whenever you cast a spell with mana value 5 or greater, choose one. Create a 3/3 green beast creature token, or create a 2/2 bird creature token with flying. I'd almost want to put this card in my Keenan deck, just so that as I'm getting, the ramp with Keenan and playing big cards, I would be getting these additional tokens. I think that'd be a lot of fun. Next we have Sail into the West, a 4-cost instant. Starting with you, each player votes for Return or Embark. If Return gets more votes, each player returns 2 cards from their graveyard to their hands. Then you exile Sail into the West. If Embark gets more votes, or the votes are tied, each player may discard their hand and draw 7 cards. Nice. Either an opponent that's, really established their hands might lose it, or people might not have a lot of cards in their hands and we're like, you know what, I'd rather have 7. So this allowing everyone to draw. Or all my stuff's dead, I'd really like it back. Let's, get stuff back from the graveyard. Next we have Song of Arlindale. It is a 5-cost saga. First one, you may scry 2, then draw 2 cards. Its 2 is create a treasure token and a 2/2 bird creature token with flying. And then level 3, put a flying counter on each creature you control without flying. Oh my gosh, because that's all you need, right? Is a bunch of flying elves running around everywhere. 5 mana is a lot, so it is nice that the deck does have a lot of mana dorks and some really good mana rocks so that this card can come down at a reasonable time. Next we have Lothlorien Blade. It is a 3-cost equipment. Whenever equipped creature attacks, it deals damage equal to its power to target creature defending player controls. You may equip it to an elf for 3, or you may equip it for 5. Next we have Model of Unity. It is a 3-cost artifact. Whenever players finish voting, you and each opponent who voted for a choice you voted for may scry 2. Tap, add 1 mana of any color. Next we have Colossal Whale, everyone's favorite 7-cost 5/5 whale. It does have Island Walk, so this creature can't be blocked as long as defending creature controls an island. Whenever Colossal Whale attacks, you may exile target creature defending player controls until this card leaves the field. Colossal Whale is this very offensive card, which does, make up for a lot of this deck being a lot more conservative. Next we have Devastating Tide. It is a 5-cost sorcery. Return all non-land permanents to their owner's hands. It also has Miracle too. So the way that Miracle works is you may cast this card for Miracle cost if you cast it when you draw it and it's the first time that you've drawn this card. I do like this card's kind of setup. As you can see, we have the Nazgul that are being swept away by water in the shape of horses that Arwen summons in order to basically protect Frodo in the movies. Next, we have Mystical Confluence. It is a 5-cost instant. Choose 3. You may choose the same mode more than once. You may counter target spell unless its owner pays 3, return target creature to its owner's hand, or draw a card. So, very versatile card, allows you to do a lot. You can either counter stuff, bounce stuff, or draw cards. Next we have Pleas for Power. It is a 4-cost sorcery with Will of the Council. Starting with you, each player votes for Time or Knowledge. If Time gets more votes, take an extra turn after this one. If Knowledge gets more votes, or the votes are tied, draw 3 cards. Taking additional turns in Magic is incredibly strong, but drawing cards is just as scary. I do like how this card has set this up. As we can see, the art depicts Boromir during the council, basically requesting them to aid Gondor. This card reads, "Smoke rises once more from Mount Doom. The power of the Black Land grows, and we are hard beset, Boromir." So again, it speaks to Boromir pleading for Elrond to send aid to help the forces of Minas Tirith hold back the forces of Mordor that are threatening to spill out and wreak havoc over the free lands, or the lands of the free people. Oh, cool! Next we have Swan Song, everyone's favorite one-cost instant. Counter target enchantment, instant, or sorcery spell. Its controller creates a 2/2 blue bird creature token with flying. Next we have
Asceticism.
It is a 5-cost enchantment. Creatures you control have hexproof. Hell yeah. You may pay 2, regenerate target creature. So the next time that creature would be destroyed, instead tap it, remove it from combat, and heal all damage on it. So that is super nice. This this card allowing you, a little bit of wiggle room with your commanders should they be, threatened to be destroyed. You have the ability to bring them back. Next we have Elvish Piper. It is a 4-cost 1/1 elf shaman. You may pay a green and tap. You may put a creature card from your hand onto the battlefield. So that's super good, allowing you to put big cards such as Gandelf or Galadriel or Colossal Whale onto the battlefield, essentially for 1. Super, super good. Very, very happy that this card did make its way into the deck, so that at least we have some way of getting out big creatures at a relatively good pace. As this deck is going to be focused on casting a lot of spells, that card allowing us to still play creatures so that we have things to block with, interact with our opponents with, etc., etc. So, next card that we have is Elvish Warmaster. It is a 2-cost 2/2 elf warrior. Whenever one or more elves enter the battlefield under your control, create a 1/1 green elf warrior creature token. This ability can only trigger once each turn. You may pay 7. Elves you control get +2/+2 and gain death touch until the end of turn. So a super, super good card to have. Elvish Warmaster allowing us to make tokens to protect ourselves, to gain pressure over our opponents whenever we cast elves, and then we can pay 7 into this card so that all of our elves get +2/+2 in death touch, so they actually become scary and are no longer just 1/1 elf tokens. Next we have Genesis Wave. It is X plus 3 green sorcery. Reveal the top X cards of your library. You may put any number of permanent cards with mana value X or less among them onto the battlefield. Then put all cards revealed this way that weren't put onto the battlefield into your graveyard. So Genesis Wave is used as just a kind of like a game finisher. Basically, when you can pay enough mana into this so that you can comfortably play basically anything in your deck, you just get to flood the deck with a bunch of cards, and then you look at your opponent and say, okay, good luck. Hell yes. Next, we have Heroic Intervention. It is a 2-cost instant. Permanent you control gain hexproof and indestructible until the end of turn. So, I am very happy that this card was included in this deck. Heroic Intervention currently is a card that's still going for almost $20 a card. I think right now you can buy it for like 17 something. But yeah, it was a super expensive card and needed. So, man, I would buy this deck specifically just to get this and some of those other nice elf cards that we've seen so far, as well as I'm sure it's going to come with some nice lands for the deck as well. But yeah, no, in all seriousness, Heroic Intervention is a fantastic card. It's a really good instance for 2, giving all your stuff indestructible until the end of turn. Kind of an odd card to see in this deck, I'm going to be 100% honest. Next, we have Hornet Queen. Was not expecting to see this in this deck. Hornet Queen is a 7-cost 2/2 insect with flying and death touch. Whenever this card enters the battlefield, create 4 1/1 green insect creature tokens with flying and death touch. So a little out of place in a elf deck, but I guess they were going for, elves live in the woods, hornets live in the woods, so it makes sense. It is pretty expensive being a 7-cost card. However, you do have to remember that it does have flying, it does have death touch, and then it makes a bunch of flying death touch insect tokens, so its mana value or mana cost is justified. Next we have Inscription of Abundance. It is a 2-cost instant with kicker 3. Choose 1. If this spell was kicked, choose any number instead. Put 2+1/+1 counters on target creature. Target player gains X life, where X is the greatest power of among creatures you control. Target creature you control fights target creature you don't control. So this card is super, super good, super versatile, either allowing you to gain life, put +1/+1 counters on it, or more importantly, have, one of your creatures go and fight other creatures that your opponents have. Heck yes! Overwhelming Stampede is our next card. This card is a 5-cost sorcery. Until the end of turn, all creatures you control gain trample and get +X/+X, where X is the greatest power among creatures you control. So I love this card. I actually run this in my Morrowind Elf Tribal deck that I do own. This card does so much work. I'm so happy that this was included in this group hug deck, because I was really thinking, like, how are we going to win with this deck? But yeah, Overwhelming Stampede is a great way to do that. Next we have Realm Seekers. It is a 6 cost 0/0 elf scout. This card enters the battlefield with X +1/+1 counters on it, where X is the total number of cards in all players' hands. You may pay 3, remove a +1/+1 counter from Realm Seekers, seek your library for a land card, reveal it, put it into your hand, and then shuffle. So this is nice, as it, though it is expensive, it comes down as a just gigantic beat stick, because this card doesn't affect the player with the highest amount of cards. It is literally everyone. So in an ideal situation, this card comes down as a 28/28, but more than likely it's going to come down as something around a 10/10. And then you can pay, 3 mana to remove one of its counters to then get a land card from your deck. Next we have Seeds of Renewal. It is a 7 cost sorcery with Undaunt. This spell costs 1 less to cast for each opponent. So if you're playing a 4-way commander game, this card is going to cost 3 less, making it only a 4 cost sorcery, which is nice. Return up to 2 permanent cards from your graveyard to your hand, exile this card. So, super nice to have, getting back cards like Legolas or Gandalf, if you're using Galadriel, or vice versa, getting back Galadriel if Gandalf is your commander. Super nice card to have. It is also nice that, this card does encourage you to play with more players. And then finally we have Sylvan Offering. Choose an opponent. You and that player each create an X green Treefo creature token. Choose an opponent. You and that player create X/1/1 green Elf Warrior creature tokens. Part of what makes this card great is not only does it give your opponent stuff, but it also gives you the same amount of stuff. So now you get a bunch of creature little tokens, and you get a giant Treefolk creature token, which then you can use to buff up, fend with, attack with, etc, etc, etc. So this card just gives you a lot of versatility with it. So with that being said, guys, now we go into our land cards. So we're going to start off, of course, with Command Tower, of course, showing Minas Tirith. Next, we have Fields of Ruin, showing off the Shire at night. Ash Barrens, which I don't think we had before. So Ash Barrens taps for colorless. It has basic land cycling 1. So you may pay 1, discard this card, search your library for a basic land card, reveal it, put it into your hand, and then shuffle. Next, we have Exalted Orchard. And then finally, we go into our, multi-purpose lands. So we have Flooded Grove, Hinter Harbor, Rejuvenating Springs, and Vine Glen Snarl as our first batch of lands that we have. Threaded Grove is a nice card, taps for colorless, or you can pay 1 into it and taps for whatever kind of mana that you need, double blue, double green, or Simic. Hinter Harbor enters the battlefield tapped unless you control a forest or an island. Rejuvenating Springs enters the battlefield tapped unless you have 2 or more opponents. So again, encouraging that 4v4 commander format that the group hug deck will shine the best in. And then Vine Glimmer Snarl. This card enters the battlefield, or when this card enters the battlefield, reveal a forest or an island card. If you don't, enter the battlefield tapped. So, super nice to have. Continuing on, we do have Thornwood Falls and Woodland Stream as our 2 dual lands. And then we have our 2 cycle lands. We have Lonely Sandbar and Thankful Thicket. So Thornwood Falls taps for either, except it does enter tapped, you do gain a life. And then Woodland Stream enters tapped, however, it does tap for either. Lonely Sandbar tapping for blue, you can also cycle it for 1. And then Thankful Thicket tapping for only green, but you can also cycle it for 1. So, following on with that, we have already seen what all of our islands look like. They have these nice, the nice art of either a waterfall or a river. And now we get to see what our forests look like. So the first one we have looks like Mirkwood, being very dark and having all these tree roots, seeming to grasp from the canopy. And then we have a very more calm, peaceful forest, either on the borders of the Shire or perhaps just on the outskirts of Lothlorien. So that is super cool to have in the deck. Very, very nice art for the deck. So that is it for the deck. We do, of course, get some creature tokens. We have a Treefolk. We have a beast in the form of a bear. We have a treasure token. And on the back of it is an elf warrior. In our second round of tokens that we have an insect token and a bird token, which I love. As well, we get multiple copies of them, which can also flip into elves. Very, very, very happy that they gave us a lot of elves because this deck is going to need a lot of elves. As with our other commander decks, guys, we do get the alternative art Galadriel, Elven Queen. As I said before, guys, this card is a lot thicker than your traditional card and does have, a different styling to the actual Galadriel Elven Queen card that we have. That is the deck, guys. As I said before, the other things that we do get with this are, of course, the One Ring card. This card was introduced into this format as an additional way to play the Commander game. And then the little token card that says, how to play the game. You have standard drafting commander, and then it gives you a breakdown of how the your turn works. So that was the Elven Council commander deck. However, we're not done yet. This is what you guys have been waiting for, I'm sure. With all of these commander decks that were pre-made, they do come with one of these sealed packs where you have the opportunity to draw some pretty cool reprinted cards, or if you're super lucky, you draw the One Ring, which again at time of recording has a resale value of probably no less than $1 million, which is pretty cool. So in this pack, of course, the first thing that you do get is this little card that says, play Magic with friends, and has this weird kind of on the back, it looks like a Magic card that's ripped, but it's not. But that's not what we're here for. We're here for these two cool cards. So the first one that we got is Pippin's Bravery. Makes sense that it came in an elf deck. It is a 1-cost card, instant. Sorry, it is a 1-cost instant. You may sacrifice a food. If you do, target creature gets +4/+4 into the end of turn. Otherwise, that creature gets +2/+2 into the end of turn. That is nice. And then the other card that we got is Palantir of Othank. So this is the Palantir that I believe Sauron had. It is a 3-cost legendary artifact. At the beginning of your end step, put an influence counter on the Palantir and scry 2. Then, target opponent may have you draw a card. If that target player doesn't, you mill X cards where X is the number of influence counters on the Palantir. And that player loses life equal to the total mana value of those cards. That is an incredibly scary card. If you mill a lot of expensive cards, your opponent's going to take a ton of damage super quick. So, again, really fun that these came in the political deck. Very cool cards. I do like that they are both basically full art cards. It does make this format a lot cooler. That has been the Elven Council. Guys, we still have more boxes and more commander decks to unveil, so hopefully I will see you in those videos. Keep your eyes peeled for them. Peace. Hey guys, thank you so much for watching. Hopefully you guys enjoyed the video. Be sure to like, comment, and subscribe, and I will see you in the next one. Peace.